I hate parity. I really don't like parity. I'm not here for parity. I'm here for dominance. I'm not here for your 8-8 bullshit where, everybody gets a chance to make the playoffs every 5 years. Give me the best. Serena walked out there and she whooped ass on everybody, and that to me is what it's all about. I want to see somebody come out there and face down everybody, every challenge, every time. And even when they lose, there's something powerful about the loss. And not having Serena on the stage is really going to diminish. I know we're talking about Naomi Osaka and we're talking about, Bianca Andreescu and talking about Iga Swiatek and the rest of them. It's Serena Williams' game, and it's going to be a long time before somebody else really steps in. She's got 23 majors. Osaka's got 4, and people were trying to talk about Osaka as some sort of heir to the throne. I mean, she's the best, and that's why we're here to watch. That's what I want to watch.
You know sports excellence. You also know sports toughness. You know the belly of the beast. You know how grueling some of this stuff is. Place in a context for us the understanding of her longevity in that sport that eats its young and is really feels abusive to me in terms of stealing childhoods.
You can say is abusive. I mean, Serena Williams didn't even go to school. I mean, she was essentially homeschooled, and she went to classes on the tennis court. So you want to talk about taking everything. All I'm going to say to you about Serena Williams when it comes to that question, Dan, she went pro in 95. It's 27 years ago. I mean, she's been a professional athlete since 1995, and her sister Venus went pro the year before, in 94. So she's been on the main stage for 27 years. And when you think about it, she's been a pro longer than her rivals right now have been alive. And that is something that you don't really get in a lot of sports. Maybe periodically you'll get a Tom Brady or somebody like that, but or Nolan Ryan, it's really, really hard to do. And to do it in that sport, and this is also, Serena is one of the first members of this new generation where you can continue to win in your 30s. Most players are out of there by their mid-20s. The game just burns them out. We just saw Ashley Barty retire. She's not even 30. And we're seeing it everywhere. But Serena, the toughness, it's not just the toughness, it's the desire to continue to compete when in that sport, you don't have teammates, you don't have really coaching, you don't have timeouts. The mental brain power of trying to play that sport where eventually most people are like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And for her to compete, in her retirement piece in the Vogue story, she talked about how she tried to turn all the negativity into a positive, where she could hear somebody in the crowd saying something, some nobody in the crowd, and that would fuel her to try to do better or to dominate and crush her opponents or whatever. But that level of competitiveness, it's going to be really interesting to see how she transitions, because most players who have that, the Jeters, the Jordans, the Larry Birds, they don't transition very well because nothing can replace that. Nothing else out there can duplicate what she's about to leave. So interested in seeing what she does next.
Howard, Mike and I love tennis as well, and I understand what you're saying. I love dominance. Mike and I really do love tennis. We love the sport. We love the history of the sport, and I get what you're saying about having a dominant player in that sport, but there's always someone next. We said the same thing when Martina left, and then Serena and Venus came along. We said the same thing about when Sampras left, and then Federer came, and then Federer kind of faded out, and it was Novak Djokovic. Jack left, Tiger replaced him. There's always going to be someone next, right?
Yeah, there's always going to be someone next. However, I will make an argument here, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. It is harder to be a great player than ever today. Harder than ever. And the reason is because of you. The reason is because of us. The reason it's your fault. The reason is because today you get the attention of a champion. You get the money of a champion. You get the visibility and the endorsements of a champion without having to be a champion. You can make a ton of money in sports today and not win anything.
You're right.
You can walk out of there. Osaka's making $50 million a year. She's got 4 majors. Back then, those guys had to win to earn. You don't have to win to earn today. So I'm really looking forward. Obviously, yes, there are going to be tons of great players coming. There's always somebody next. When you think you're never going to see this again, somebody comes, because that's what happens. But the way that sports is set up today, you can check out of this real fast and make a boatload before you're competing. It's going to take that special person who has decided that they're going to compete against history instead of just playing for money or playing for attention. You're going to get all of that. You can get all of that without even winning a major, never mind 23 of them.
But it can't be disproven what you guys are saying, that someone always comes next. And I can argue, not like this. Longer career than Tom Brady out of Compton, revolutionizing the sport, overwhelming body, staying with her for 30 years. Like, no, man, we ain't going to see this again. This, like, you could go ahead and think that maybe you'll see it, but not like this. Not if you're going to give everyone $50 million a year and they don't have to win, people are going to gravitate toward the empire that she built.
That's 100%. And also, if you're going to add Venus in there as well, they are. You can throw Eli and Peyton in there. You can throw, if you want to throw Randy Moffat and Billie Jean King in there, be my guest. You can throw the Boone family, whoever you want. Or Venus and Serena are the greatest pair of siblings in the history of North American sports. And nobody's done what they did. No one's going to do what they've done, and so you're right in terms of you think you're going to see greatness, but you're not going to see that again, in my opinion.
Howard, you got me thinking, because I too actually like dominance, and you held up the NFL as an example. I'd tell you that you actually see dominance in the NFL. It's the same guy, much like Serena, doing it over the course of 20 years. But in men's tennis, we see dominance, and it's dispersed almost evenly throughout three guys. They're rivals. We know that when we get to a final, we are going to see two at the absolute height of this sport. With Serena, I have a hard time trying to even figure out who her greatest rival is. Is it Venus?
No,
it's
was
Venus. If you look at the records, Jankovic probably had the best record against her, and it was only a 40% success rate. So who was her greatest rival?
Her greatest rival was her sister. It's Venus. You got to go back 20 years, but it's those two. You go back to what they were doing in the early 2000s and the late 90s. They dominated the sport. They were both number one and number two. The number of, you could make Venus has got 7 majors. If it weren't for Serena, they would be like Chrissy and Martina. They'd be like 16 apiece or whatever. But you're looking at the way that those two had to push each other. You're looking at the way that those two, and those matches were not always great matches because there was so much emotion in between them. How do you play your sister in a major in front of 24,000 people? And so there's no doubt, if you go back to the more recent times, the last decade, for me, it's probably Azarenka, those back-to-back U.S. Open finals in 2013, 2014, 2012, 2013. I remember those two. But really, she did not have a singular rival. What she did have, however, what was really sort of interesting was everybody trying to slay the beast. So you had these, I don't want to say pretenders, but you had all of these players be good players and have good tournaments. And then they would have the match of their lives against Serena. Kerber, match of her life against Serena. Muguruza, match of her life against Serena. Sam Stosur, match of her life against Serena. So Serena was the standard, and everybody was trying to live up to that. And it's going to, once again, and they were so ubiquitous, and Serena was so ubiquitous that there were so many times where American media and the USTA, they would just sort of forget them. Like, they treat them like they're not even American. We're like, when's the next American champion going to come? Well, you've had one for the last damn near 30 years.
Howard, what does she mean culturally?
Well, and then there's that. Then there's the other piece of it, which is, of course, the cultural piece, during the Me Too era, during the era of equal pay, what Serena has meant, obviously, to Black women in the sport, women of color in the sport, fans in particular, who felt, you want to talk about a beehive. Okay, Beyonce's got her group, but my goodness, criticize Serena on Twitter and Lord, pray for what happens to you next. There really is she's a symbol of a lot of people who didn't feel heard, a lot of people who felt like they were being marginalized, and for, Serena's victories were their victories. And so many cases, especially at the US Open against Osaka, when they felt like she was being completely wronged. yeah, there was a lot of theater there that was based on a lot of emotions that didn't have a lot to do with tennis.